Well, many believe this divisive election year has been one for the history books, but is it the most polarizing political climate America has ever seen? A New York Times opinion piece called "Our Feuding Founding Fathers" takes a look at our political past, writing, quote, "We often hear pundits declare that our politics have never been more polarized. In fact, politics were even more divided and violent in the era of the founders, when one minister worried that the parties hate each other as much as the French and English hate each other in the time of war." Here now, Doug Wead, a presidential historian, and much needed perspective on what's going on. Doug, are we in the most polarizing time ever, or do you agree with the author of this piece that perhaps we're forgetting some very key moments in our history?
That's right. We're forgetting. It's really something to hear pundits say this is as mean as it's ever been. It just shows they flunked history. Washington was in despair over what was happening, and he had a Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton, who's now a Broadway star too, fighting with Thomas Jefferson, his Secretary of State. And the Jefferson pamphleteers were saying that Alexander Hamilton was having an affair with a woman named Maria Reynolds and was using government funds to pay blackmail money to her husband. And the Hamilton pamphleteers were saying Thomas Jefferson was having sexual relations with his black slave, Sally Hemings, and used government money to take her to Paris, France on a government mission. And it turns out, after many years, many historians, myself and others included, were really vilified for piecing together what we believed was evidence to show the charges against Jefferson were true. Now DNA proves it. So, hey, the hot mic for Donald Trump was nothing.
Well, why do you think we forget that? Is it just that we don't have a great grasp of our history, or are we just kind of doomed to go into these cycles in politics every once in a while because that's the way America was founded, to create this tension?
Yeah, we forget there's no time for history. There's only 24 hours in a day, and there's hundreds of years of history. And some people love it. I love it. Love to read it and study it. I think of Andrew Jackson and what happened to his wife. He called it the corrupt bargain. He felt the election was rigged. He came back the next time and he won it. And his wife went to Nashville to buy her inaugural dress, and here were all these stacks of newspapers around. She started reading them and learning that during the campaign they'd accused her of adultery. They accused her of being a bigamist. She was a deeply devout religious woman. It stung her to the core. She went back to the Hermitage, their plantation, fell ill, and she died. She never stepped in the White House as First Lady. She never wore the dress she bought in Nashville during that trip.
That is such a sad story.
And Jackson was angry.
I'm surely angry. I mean, it shows you the impact, though. I mean, for most of us, this is very much at the surface level of conversation, but you know, it's easy to take these attacks very personal. And one of the piece that we were mentioning, the writer said this: political partisans and journalists shot one another in duels over insults, and the early Congress was full of limping gentlemen. Because of that, I mean, that's where we were at, Doug?
Yes, there was fist fights on the floor of the House of Representatives. There was a caning that happened, and there continual retaliation. Jackson, for example, was so disturbed over what happened to his wife, and he felt that the media had killed her. So he cobbled together his own network of Jackson newspapers, and he began to attack the new emerging political figure, William Henry Harrison, who was challenging his vice president, Martin Van Buren. And he couldn't get anything on Harrison, so he attacked his children. And the Harrisons buried 3 of their 4 adult children on the 3 consecutive years leading up to his election as president. And his wife never stepped foot in the White House. Jackson got revenge because Harrison was dead within 30 days, surrounded by those widows and those grandchildren. Very sad story.
A rigged election, potentially a new journalist endeavor. It's sounding very familiar. Just give us a little hope as we end here, Doug. We've always turned out okay, right, in the few hundred years that we've been in existence?
there are beautiful moments in the darkness. And with William Henry Harrison, for example, he had 4 sons. So 3 of them died in the bitterness leading up to that election. But one of them, John Scott Harrison, lived. He became a congressman. He became very successful. And his son became the 23rd president of the United States, Benjamin Harrison. So sometimes a rose will emerge in the junkyard.
Well, that's something just for us to keep in mind. John Scott Harrison. No irony there. Doug, it's always nice to have you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, John.
I like the sound of that. Hey, let's go check out what's ahead on Outnumbered, top of the hour. Ladies, what do you have?
Well, we are waiting for